Hello and welcome to Flooring Models Kit View Time. Today we've got Eduard's rebox of the 1/48 scale Zvezda Hind D. So this kit has been out, but again, Eduard have done one of those nice things they tend to do, and they've done a reboxing of it with obviously some of their goodies, in fact quite a bit of their goodies into this one, and amazing markings right the way through. And we get a book. I haven't seen any of this is totally new to me. So as you can see, very nice box art, very reminiscent of actually the 72nd kit boxing where it had two of them in flight and all the rest of it. You might remember that was a Zvezda rebox, which actually I built as well. We did it as part of a live show on that particular one. Anyway, it is a limited edition, so that does mean gorgeous markings. These are all Czech ones. So as you can say, Czech and Slovak service ones down in there. Kit number for this one is 11150. Again, some more on here and some details you can see of the actual sort of brass-in parts as well. So we've got the underbelly, the missile racks on the outside. Looks like we've got some exhaust bits as well and some other different bits and pieces in there as well. So without further ado, let's have a look in the box. Oh, hello, that's different. I wasn't expecting that. Okay, so that's the brass-in box for it. It's one of their standard boxes, which I assume is, because it hasn't got the sticker on, has all the parts inside. We'll look at that in a moment. A health and safety bag with, I assume, the kit in there. That's very odd. I haven't seen that before. And then nothing. But there's your clue. I'm assuming the rest of it is under here. Okay, so that's the book, which actually doesn't look too bad at all. That's quite chunky. We've got the instructions, talking about before. Then obviously we've got the goodies inside. We just make a bit of room here. Again, so we've got Decals, colour and standard ones down there. Master Etch, you might imagine, and a bucket full of photo etch fun as well. So we've got all the bits you imagine, and of course we've got markings and stencil data just down in there. Right, where are we going to start? I tell you what, let's move some of this out of the way a second. I tell you what, we'll start with the book, then we'll work our way through the kit, because to be honest, this is the exciting bit. Oh no, I can't get in. Right, okay, we have the book. So if it's going to be like the others, it will all be in Czech, and then you have to get a little bit creative with translations. So again, great thing about these books, we saw it with the 72nd one as well, is the background and the details right the way through, as you can see. But obviously the big thing is reference photos, let's face it. Some real nice, good, close-up ones down in here. All the different ones as well. So obviously the tiger meat ones, looking absolutely stunning. And again, we can see all of these down in here. Obviously I did one as well, but I must admit I did the Big Brother, the Trumpeter 35th scale one. And I was using this book for references as well from the original Hind one. As you can see, we've got the missiles, really very, very nice. And again, this is what really makes this kit stand out amongst all the others. Obviously you get all the aftermarket stuff, but reference, reference material, things like that is absolutely, one of those things that sometimes you just can't find that particular picture of the markings. Obviously this is all the ones for the markings here and things like that right the way through. It's got a shark's mouth, so I'm sold. Into this one as well. So all the background information, as I say, it is all in Czech, but you can get a translation, I do believe, online for this one, and say some gorgeous photos right the way through. Some really nice bits down in there, just like that. So that's the book, which, to be honest with you, is probably one of the key selling points of this particular kit. The other thing as well, we will get to in a second. Let's have a look at the instructions and have a run through. So this is a standard Zvezda Hind, which I must admit, I've done a standalone review of that kit, and you'll know that I wasn't too much of a fan of it, purely because I think it was lacking in a lot of details, lacking in cockpit detail, interior detail, and surface detail on the actual kit. That said, it was great. What this will bring you now is what we was always expecting to happen, is a lot of aftermarket to bring it up to speed and to do that. So again, there's a lot of stuff in here you're not going to be using, because obviously you're going to be replacing it with photo etch and resin. Some of the parts obviously for different versions as well. Okay, usual thing, if it's in red it means remove it, if it's in blue it usually means it's being replaced by it. Okay, so normally blue is photo etch and things like that. Again, removing all the parts from the cockpit. To be honest, there's not a lot in it anyway, because it's pretty much devoid of all detail internally, because you need this, which is the colour photo etch set for absolutely everywhere down in the cockpit. Really, it needs it. Without it, it's far too plain, and it was my biggest criticism against the actual original release with it, because there was just no detail to it. So this will bring all that detail. So things like this. So we've got the weapon circuit breakers down in here on the right-hand side, and then down here on the left-hand side, we've got all the circuit breakers as well for the standard flight model of the actual aircraft itself. Then obviously working our way around all the panels, you're replacing all of those with all the details, including the floor, rudder pedals with the straps, which for once you could probably pop them in, and things like that. Okay, so that's the cockpit taken care of, and was probably my biggest gripe against the original release. Then we're working our way back down in here, so we've obviously got the gearbox and the engines and all the areas down in here, as you might imagine, going right the way through. And to be honest, they are absolutely gorgeous, very nicely detailed and things like that. The rear cabin, you can't really see much in there, so that's not so much of a problem unless you've got all the doors open, but you do get the harnesses and things like that for the center sort of butterfly bench. All right, so that's being fitted in. Then going back in through the back of it, putting all the areas in, you name it, it's all being added to it. And then again with the front areas as well, you've got the floor sections going in because of the gun, and all of those parts going down into it. Instrument panels obviously now being replaced as well by colour photo etch ones, so that's going to be absolutely lovely. And then the two halves coming in to sort of sandwich that all together as it goes through. Gear being fitted down in here at the back as well, so obviously depending on which ones you're doing, going to be in there like that. Weapons pylons, the winglets, things like that being fitted down in there, and then glass work being fitted on as well. And again, there's more photo etch on the inside of this to really detail up that front cockpit, which is great. And then obviously various items being added, getting the gear onto it, and then working your way through the front covers and doors and things like that as it makes its way around. One of the noticeable areas is obviously down in here. You've got the actual chaff and flare buckets, more like pallets to be honest on these, which are strapped in. So these are actually straps that run around the back and put all of those in. So you get all of those with it as well, which brings it up to the standard. Same goes for the actual guided missiles onto the actual outer side. There's new systems on for that one, putting those in. Again, gun down here at the bottom, things like that, working its way up. And again, some of the details, very, very fine, but again, nice to see. So we've actually got the in-flight gear as well from sort of pitot and the weather vanes and things like that. So that's all very nice, that helps out. All the aerials, we got windscreen wipers, various things being fitted down into this one, as you might imagine, right the way over. Rotor head as it's going through there as well. All the details, there's plenty of photo etch going to be replacing all the aerials and all the bits and pieces, as you might imagine. So there's lots of those going on. And then we've obviously got those nice resin cast exhausts. So very nice with all of those. Mast set obviously is included, very handy for obviously that particular aircraft to go through. And then, as we said, you know, looking at the box, you've got options down in here and some really very, very nice ones for all the different versions down in here in all the great markings, as you can see. Obviously a lot of the Tiger ones and the standard ones as well. So some very nice different markings. And again, down in here, there's lots of details and things and stencil data. So we've got stuff for down in here in the cargo, they've got them in the doors, the rotors. I don't know if it's got the numbering all the way down the rotors, but normally they have numbers on all the rotors right the way through. Oh, it is, yeah, there you go, number stencils. That's going to be fun, putting all of those in as well. So very, very nice. We even got the little moving map down into there, and we say we've got the missiles and things. That's nice. External stencil detail being put down as well, pretty straightforward right the way again, depending on different versions and everything like that. In all of those broken down, lots of detail. And again, I was quite outspoken, and I'll be honest with you, I wasn't impressed at all with the original releasing of it. It's just lacking all the detail. This is the nice thing to this now, it does bring all of that detail back in. Decals, let's face it, I'm not going to get these out because I still maintain it's the weak part of this kit. These are going to be the newer decals with the big carrier film, so play with it as you will. I don't really want to get embroiled in that argument again because I've covered it quite extensively in the past. But to say that I wish they'd go back to the old way is an understatement, because part of buying these kits is because of these markings. That's why I always bought their kits and did all of these, purely because I wanted it in the nice markings. I've got to fight with the decals to put them on now. That's the only drawback. Other bits we've got down in here, as you can imagine, we've got a lot of photo etch that's going through. So as you can see, we've got ton of it down in there to add all that detail that the main kit is sadly missing. So we've got some nice, and we'll probably see as well, we've got some clears as well. So got a little bit of acetate down in there for those. And again, what it really always needed was a colour photo etch set as well, just to bring all of this to life, and that does that very nicely down in the actual areas as well, around in the cockpit and all the paneling and stuff. And we've got harnesses down on the other side as well. So that's really what this kit was crying out for from day one. And again, a mask set, which you can never go wrong with a mask set. That's very nice indeed. So in the box, which you can't get into, what's in the box? So in the box we have the Brazin goodie bits, and these look like they're all 3D printed. So again, we're not resin anymore, these are 3D printed on their little legs. So we've got the sensors, so this has the door system onto it, so down in there, done in black, which is unusual, but you can see very nice 3D printed, just like that. That's actually looking very, very nice indeed. Good details. I know the camera's probably struggling on the black there to see that, but that's all very nice indeed. So that's good. And we've got another one over here. So again, very nicely 3D printed as well. And again, another one, another small one. And then again, down in here, we've got the exhausts, which are 3D printed as well. Nice to see 3D printing is coming along instead of resin. Again, you know, I think we're now at that age where 3D printing can pretty much stand on its own 2 feet. Whereas before it was just a little bit grainy and a little bit clunky. Definitely, as you can see, they're not. But we do have traditional resin as well. So we've got some of the resin parts down in here. So these are those chaff and flare pallets which go down on the back. So they're going to be strapped to your tail as that goes through. So that's a very worthy upgrade. We've got the missiles, which again, I'm, you know, I say slightly concerned that they might get broken in transit, but it looks like these are all together. So these are the guided missiles for the outer pylons. So we've got 4 of those just down in there. And then down in here we've got the rails. So we've got the twin rail there and the twin rail there for handling those missiles, and a couple of other small resin parts, and it looks like we are all still on the sprues, which is very nice. And just to maintain they stay on the sprue, we're going to pop them all back down in here just in case we lose them, because we definitely don't want to do that. But yes, very, very nice indeed with those. So 3D printed and your resin parts just down in there. And again, we often talk about it, keep this stuff. People often ask me about where do I get my high density foam from? Brazin sets, because this stuff is great for masking wheel wells and things like that. So always keep that. Don't throw it away. Trust me. It's one of those biggest questions I probably get asked recently is, where'd you get your foam from? It's out of those. Right, in the bag, which looks like it's come from a online retailer that I won't name, but okay, it's a 100% recycled bag, that's why. Okay, so this is sort of a recap. I'm not going to go massively into detail to it because I have covered this quite extensively, certainly in the other reviews of this particular one, as you've probably seen. But really what we've got down in here is the actual fuselages, and to be honest with you, just pointing it out, the biggest part I was, you know, a bit disappointed with is the lack of entire detail back here. This has got lots of rivets and various things going onto it. This entire tail section is absolutely covered in it, and unfortunately we don't see any of them at all on this. And in theory, the entire outer skin, it's got all the panel lines and they're very nicely done, don't get me wrong, but there's no of that sort of famous, well, you know, sort of tankness of it, as in rivets and, you know, access panels and various things on it and lumps and bumps. It's pretty much devoid of all of it, which was actually a real shame with the kit. And we were sort of hoping that somebody else might come along and do it all nicely, but I'm not holding my breath there either. So unfortunately, not a great deal of detail going on down in there. And then, but the rest of the parts, as you can probably see, looking very, very nice. So we've got the engines, we've got all the other bits down in here. As I say, we have reviewed this before. If you want to go off and see the full review of this particular kit, I will link it down below. But as you can see, it's those standard parts. And again, you do get some nice touches, don't get me wrong, like we've got the actual soundproofing and the blankets up at the top there, and some various details around the engine are all absolutely fantastic. It's just on the bigger areas, there's just not a lot really going on. But generally, the Zvezda kit is quite nice. Obviously, this being the D version, we've got the actual gun system down on the bottom here, unlike the V and the P and all the rest of it, which has the 30mm cannons each side. This is the standard door system, which again doesn't have the opportunity to have it opened anyway, which is a shame. But this is going to be replaced now by obviously the resin parts, but you have got the standard kit parts down in here anyway if you did want to do that. But again, very, very nicely done. And again, we've got those big old rotors, which are really nice. They're recessed in all the details down in here. And again, different versions and things like this. So obviously we've got the flare chaff buckets as well for the Russian versions, which have those down in there in the blocks of 10s and 30s on there. So that's absolutely fine. You do get crew. So we've actually got the crew down in here in the seating position. So we've got the gunner and the actual pilot as well. So that's quite a nice touch. And obviously, because this is the standard kit, you do get the big IR suppressors and things like that for the exhaust if you wanted to do down in that way as well. So we do have those. And then we've got the weapons. So again, standard, we've got the fuel tanks, we've got the gun pods, and then obviously we've got the rocket pods down in here as well. So if you did want to go down that route, you've got all of those parts down in here as well. So that's quite nice. Generally, I have to say, it's actually a really nice kit. It's all there, it's just lacking in that surface detail, and it was lacking internal detail. Now, I think definitely now this kit has been covered by internals because we've got a bucket load of resin and photo etch to really bring it up to speed. I'm still a little bit disappointed that we don't get any on the back end, that raised riveting and things like that. And of course, I've got riveting gear and all the rest of it, but technically it's raised rivets. It would have been nice to see it, or any type of external riveting. But you know, we are modelers at the end of the day, and you can add that detail if you want to. Clear parts I won't get out because you can watch it on the other review, but they look really very nice as well, and they're always very nice and clear. It's literally one of those kits I am still a little bit split on. I am a huge Hind fan. If anybody who knows me, I fly online on DCS, and I fly the Mi-24 is my go-to helicopter when I'm flying on simulations, and do it like that, and I can be found every other weekend flying that around. That's all I do. So I'm a huge fan of this helicopter, but I just feel that Zvezda dropped the ball a little bit by not giving us that external details. It would have been nice to have some riveting down there and everything else, because now, as we probably knew, Eduard were going to come along and going to throw all of their stuff at it. They've done it. But what they can't do is do all the riveting detail and all the lumps and bumps and all the rest of it down the back end of the actual Hind. The Hind as well is very much a tank. It's a heavy hitting beast of a helicopter, you know, so you want it to feel like that. And it's just something with the Zvezda kit. It's clean, it's smooth, it's nice, it's too nice in a lot of ways. It's not what we obviously think of a Hind as being. You want it to be a beast and big and bulky and chunky and lumps and bumps all over it. You don't get it with this actual kit, and I'm not sure, before everyone starts to shout about it, the trumpeter one's going to be any different. I don't imagine the trumpeter one's going to come with full recessed and raised rivet detail all over this one either. So again, this is a beautiful kit. It goes together very nicely. I know people have put this kit together, and then again, just getting that front end right, take a little bit of time, make sure you do a lot of test bitting, you'll end up with something absolutely stunning. But I'm still just a little bit disappointed with the surface detail. I'd like to get that. And of course, you know, I could re-rivet, you could put raised rivets onto it, you could add all those details. We are modelers. I was just sort of hoping that maybe a kit would come along that sort of gives us that, very reminiscent to what Trumpeter did all those years ago with the 1/35th scale one. I know it's a different animal, it's a different manufacturer, so forth and so on, but that's really what I was after. Building that kit, which isn't the most accurate Hind kit out there anyway, but it gives you everything you want as a modeler. This particular one you don't. What you do get though now is some great stuff come together. If you're a fan of their decals, you're going to be able to get those in there and get them to work. You've got everything you want in there. Some really, really interesting stuff. The book is absolutely gorgeous. It's one of those things, I can't read it, but I'm sure obviously there is the online version as well, which has got the translation into it, so you could go off and see that one, and it probably would be a very good read, especially getting some of the background ones on some of the markings that you're using down in here. But to have a reference book to go along with a build, especially when you're adding all the details on the inside, is very, very helpful, because again, you can get angles and things that sometimes you just can't get online and get different photos and that. As I said before, when I've done other reviews, I've got one of these up the road from me. It's around about 35 miles up the road at the Helicopter Museum in Weston-super-Mare, and I am drawn to that aircraft every time I go in there, because it's the one thing I want to go and see, and I've seen that helicopter now 100 times, and it never fails to actually inspire me to want to just build one. And you know, I'm there every single time, and now this kit has come along and I want to build this kit. So don't think I'm doing a bit of a downer on this one. I just wish it had that external details into it. But again, for all those people that are holding out for the actual trumpeter version or the Hobby Boss one, I don't think it's going to have it either. So from that point of view, you're probably better off with this one anyway. Anyway, there we go. It's enough of my waffling. That is Eduard's rebox of the Zvezda Hind D in 1/48 scale.